I've been blessing houses for 3 years. 3 years of distressed parents, shaken kids, and superstitious elderly. From bumps in the night to shapes in the woods, I've answered calls far and wide to clear the terrified of their fear of the supernatural. I started small in my hometown and slowly worked my way to taking jobs out of state. I did it for free at first, but after the donations started rolling in and my name got around, I was able to earn a decent living from saving the innocent from otherworldly threats. My growth in popularity led to my persona, the young and prestigious Father Cain. Each time they ask me how I perform such miracles, and each time with over-exaggerated theatrics and heavy mysticism, I keep them from learning my hidden secret. I'm a fraud. That's right, I'm a total fake. It started as a prank, just to see if I could do it, really. But after I actually got away with it, I realized I could help people by the power of placebo alone. Over 100 successful cleanses with nothing but thanks to follow. But this was different. And after this, I left blessing houses anymore. Yesterday started like any other routine job. After some messaging back and forth with the client on Facebook, I knew the gist of what was going on. The client's name was Lacy Stephens, and she was concerned about some strange occurrences going on in her house. I pulled my car into the driveway, taking in their gorgeous property as I parked in the front. It was an old Victorian-style house, a few acres of forest serving as a backdrop. A field neighbored the property on either side, and less than a block away was construction for what looked like a new subdivision. I stepped out of the car and walked up the drive, smoothing my peacoat with my shiny black gloves. In my right pocket was the rosary, and on the left was a bundle of sage with the vial of holy water. I went over my lines in my head, a smug grin already starting to form. Lovely evening, Miss Stephens. Blessed day, Miss Stephens. How are we faring today, Miss Stephens? As I moved, I saw, as I knocked the door, Jesus, you look more ridiculous than I thought. A man stood in the door, tall and broad, his face twisted in a scowl, wife beater, basketball shorts. On his head was a large gaming headset, a thin cord trailing down from it to a controller gripped in his hand. I'm sorry, I asked, confused. Then, a voice from behind. Father Cain, thank you for coming out today, said Lacy Stephens, who beamed under the man's shadow. She was very pretty with long brown hair, her curvy body accented by spaghetti string top and leggings. Pleasure's mine, I said, shaking her hand with both of mine, much like a priest would in a church. I flashed a smile at her, and then to the husband, who proceeded to groan. Come in, come in. Don't mind my husband, he's in the middle of a game. As I moved inside, I looked around the living room at the furnishings and wall decorations. It gave the old house a much more modern look, your standard live, laugh, love, giving a taste of Instagram home happiness. I looked at the pictures on the walls, taking in additional information in my head. So, how do we start? She asked. Tell me about what's happening here, and we'll go from there, I said, putting my hands together. It started a couple months ago. Nothing really crazy, just weird. I've had a couple doors close on their own while he's at work. Sometimes in the middle of the night, the house creaks and I can hear scratching in the walls. It didn't happen often at first, but lately it's been every night. My husband thinks I'm overreacting. Not that he would hear it anyway, the way he snores. Most of the activity is in the kitchen and the basement. The entrance to the basement is next to the pantry. Let's have a look, shall we? I want to reach the epicenter. It'll be there where we'll cast our blessing, if that is what you want.
"What sort of noises have you been hearing, Mrs. Stephens?" I asked, following them in slow, steady steps. "The scratching has only happened a couple times. There's been a few knocks, too. Sometimes I think I hear whispers, too," she said, rubbing her arm as if suddenly chilled. "The most unnerving one is the clicking, though. I can't explain it. It almost sounds like gunfire," she said, looking at her husband. "I told you, Lacy, nobody's firing off machine guns in the neighborhood. We live in a nice part of town. Here's the basement. Come on," said the husband, rushing the tour along. I entered the kitchen and actually felt a chill waft over me. I could see the culprit immediately, a pair of single-paned windows by the sink. I kept my smile to myself and followed the husband, the wife following close behind. We went down the stairs, each step creaking as we descended. The basement was unfinished, the crude cement walls damp and dimly lit. Lacy passed us and walked to the old washer and dryer, her bare feet slapping the concrete floor. There were 2 green rugs on the floor, one in front of the machines and another in the far corner. "This is where I hear it, every time I do laundry. He thinks I'm crazy." She put her arms out in the empty space. "Hear what exactly?" I asked. "The clicking," she said. "It's only when I'm down here, alone," she said, hugging herself.
"You said there was a leak. May I see it?" I asked. Lacy walked over to the second rug and peeled it up. It separated from the ground with a wet sucking sound, and I moved closer to inspect it. Septic leak would be anywhere from clear to brown, not to mention the smell. This leak was black, like the color of tar. Underneath the rug was a wooden padlocked door, and the black ooze had been seeping from underneath it. I looked at the trap door and the rusted lock that looked like it hadn't been touched in a decade. I could feel a breeze coming from it, like a damp breath pushing out. There was something about the door. It didn't feel right. I looked at it, feeling my ears get hot. The longer I looked, the more I thought I heard something, slowly rising beneath it. I clutched the rosary nervously, the noise getting louder. "The kettle," Lacy said, and made her way upstairs. I pried it up, gently grabbing the lock. The surface of the rusted metal deteriorated on my gloves. I rubbed my fingers together and it smeared into a disgusting paste. Above me, the door slammed hard and I jumped. I looked for Mr. Stephens, but he was gone. Standing alone in the basement, the lights went out. I felt through the dark, heading to the stairs. I cleared my throat and spoke aloud. I reached for the basement door and opened it, expecting them to be waiting, possibly laughing. Maybe they were playing me, but there was no laughter, no pointed fingers. There was nobody at all, just an empty, cold kitchen. Even the appliances were gone. "Hello?" I called, watching my words come out as fog. The house was bare and unbelievably gray. I walked into the kitchen, my footsteps kicking up dust. My first thought was to just leave, the irrational fear of the unknown gripping my spine like ice. I headed for the front door and shoved it open. My car was gone. The driveway was gone. Nothing but open fields. No construction, nothing. The sky above was the color of ash, overcast for as far as you can see. There was movement in the monochrome landscape, about as far away as my car had been. Long, twiggy legs attached to white, elegant feathers. A pair of storks in the grass, their legs robotic under a seemingly fluid body. They looked at me, eyes beady and wide as if they were alarmed. Together they pointed their beaks to the sky, a loud chattering erupting from their bills. It sounded like gunfire over the valley. I slammed the door to block out the noise and hide from their beady eyes. No, I stammered, feeling helpless, out of control. The rosary in my hand was steaming, the beads radiating warmth. I looked around the living room, the flat screen, the couch, video games, all gone, bare walls, fogged windows. There was a loud crash, and I squeezed my eyes shut, the rosary held close. Whatever it was, it came from the basement. I went in, holding the beads close. pushing forward, down the steps. I waited for something, like a hand to grab me, but the sensation was different. I felt eyes on me, but there was no one in sight. I stood before the hole and looked in. There was nothing, only a void. Black, so thick it looked like you could grasp it. The noises came from the hole, the metallic ting with a whisper on the cold breeze. Holding the rosary, I closed my eyes and jumped in. I landed gracefully at my destination, and once I had the courage, I opened my eyes. I was in what looked like a cavern, but a man-made one. Carved out 10-foot ceilings in the stone, like a larger, cruder basement. Torches lined the walls, fire that burned white. I watched in horror, unable to speak, unable to breathe.
As I moved, I saw, hanging from the ceiling on a long braid of barbed wire, was a woman. Blindfolded and gagged, she hung like an art piece, a complicated shibari tie forcing her pose, upside down. Her naked skin was scuffed with a slick black rub, an oily substance that reflected the torchlight. It looked terrifying and painful, the way the wire bound her. Arms tied tight behind her back, each leg positioned individually with the grace of a ballerina, like she was twirling in the air. I took a step toward the woman to try and help her, but froze. I could hear the fabric of their clothing as it moved. Whatever resided beneath was being restrained. I guessed it to be a muscular man from the build, but its face was shielded by a porcelain mask, arched slits for eyes, and a long, shoebill beak. Ahead of me, the hulking dominator looked my way, a long finger unraveling from his fist as he pointed. Those bloodshot eyes looked angry, offended even. "Get off me! Get off! Get—" "What the fuck is your problem, man? It was just a fuse," said a familiar voice. I thrashed wildly and opened my eyes, Lacy and Brian looking at me bewildered. We were back in the kitchen. I huffed for breath, sweat trickling down my back and beating on my forehead. At my feet was a shattered teacup, china glass crunching under my feet. What happened?" I asked, taking off my gloves and wiping my face. "What do you mean, what happened?" "The breaker blew, I went to fix it, you said you would burn some sage and sprinkle some water or whatever. Then you come up here mumbling and shit, and she handed you some tea. You squeezed the cup until it broke, reached out for her all crazy. Now look at this mess. What's wrong with you, man?" My mind raced. I looked at Lacy, who put her hands up and backed away, moving behind Brian. I thought of it all. It replayed in my head on fast forward. The barbed wire, the girl, the storks. I looked at Lacy's face. The hair, her skin, it was her, the bound woman. I blinked and rubbed my eyes. My face was flushed and I felt a hot trickle from my nose. I touched it to see the red drip of a nosebleed. "You need to get out of this house. It's not safe," I pleaded, and they flinched when I stepped forward. "You guys gotta go. I don't know what it is. I can't No, it's you who needs to go. Get the fuck out of here. Come on, let's go. Now," he said, grabbing me by the arm hard. "No, you don't understand. Your wife. She's not safe in here. You gotta get her out of here," I begged, as he shoved me through the living room. "Yeah, not safe from you, no doubt." He opened the door and tossed me out, jabbing a finger in my face. "Don't come back here, understand? Don't message my wife. Don't show your face here again. I'll call the cops. Psycho." He slammed the door in my face. I walked to my car, my head foggy, my nerves shot, my hands were shaking, and when I got in my car, I sat there for a moment. I looked at the house, with all of its color returned. I looked to the front window. Lacy was there, mouthing the words, "I'm sorry," briefly before her husband was there, phone in hand. They started shouting at each other, and I started my car, tires spinning gravel as I turned around. I drove home, not really sure of what to think. Days have passed now. The phone calls are getting less frequent and the messages have died down. I made a post on social media announcing my resignation.
I check in on the site from time to time, seeing the love from those I have helped in the past. I hope I really did help them somehow. Maybe it wasn't all the waste. I'm sorry, everyone. Really? Lacy sent me an email. It's 2 a.m. I've read it a dozen times and I don't know what to do. Every time I read her name, I'm reminded of the clicking, the beaks echoing in my mind. Nothing makes it go away. I can only turn down the volume, but it never leaves. Why? Why won't it stop?
Father Cain, it took me a while to track you down. I'll understand if you don't respond, but I don't know who else to talk to. The door is open. My husband doesn't see it. It's always closed for him, but I can. It opens at night. It calls to me. I know you warned me, but I don't know how long I can resist. I just heard it open. I can hear it. The clicking. It's getting louder and louder.